So I'm just trying to check the YouTube if I can see a couple of people on before we start talking. Okay, two people. Wow, one person. I'm trying to see if more people can join in so we don't just start without having. Okay. So we had two people, but now they both drop off. Oh, okay. Hi everyone, you're all welcome to DevSecCon Nigeria. DevSecCon Nigeria chapter is the global DevSecCon Nigeria is a chapter of the global DevSecCon community, which is an inclusive community that educates and enables developers in application security. So coming up today, we'll be joined by Hung, who will be talking about card games in threat modeling, how we can ace our threat modeling game, how we can ace our threat modeling using card games. So Hung is a cybersecurity engineer with an interest in application security. He's an active member of several communities, including Snake. So he's an ambassador for Snake and Git Guardian, and he's a huge advocate for women in cybersecurity and women in tech. In his free time, he gives lecture on cybersecurity and he enjoys blogging, video games, and everything sweet. So before we dive into the discussion of today, I would quickly take time to introduce myself. My name is Zaina Boladiti, and I am a co-lead for the DevSecCon Nigeria chapter. So now I will hand over to Hung to take us through the slide for today. Thank you.
Hey everyone, hey Zainab. So great to be here. I am I'm honored to be the first speaker for the DevSecCon Nigeria, and I surely hope that you will like my talk on the threat modeling and on the topic of the card games. Before we start, I would like to wholeheartedly welcome you to the DevSecCon recording. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to post them either into the chat or on our DevSecCon Discord. So if you could please put in the slides so we can start, Zainab. Yeah, thanks. So welcome everyone to my talk on the topic of the card games in threat modeling. As I have mentioned, my name is Hung Ngo, and I work as a cybersecurity engineer for the consulting company called PwC. And to answer the question of who am I, well, as I've mentioned, my name is Hung Ngo. On the internet, you can find me by the nickname Hung Ngo Boss. I'm a cybersecurity engineer and a cybersecurity lecturer. I'm enthusiastic about application security. I also lead the Czech chapter for the DevSecCon. So it's amazing to be able to speak to other chapters such as Nigerian one. I am an ambassador for Sneak and Git Guardian, and also I am co-organizing the Besides Prague. So if you are going for these type of conferences, you can surely meet me. I love video games, I love board games, I like everything sweet, I like cats, and from time to time I write articles about both security and programming, and from time to time, if I don't embarrass myself, such as today, people usually invite me to talk about the topics I'm passionate about, so that's mainly cybersecurity. But enough about me. Today, we should be talking about threat modeling. So please let's just start with some memes about threat modeling. I especially like the meme on the right side with defining the threat model or drawing 25 cards. Usually the developers don't know or don't want to do threat modeling. And if you are like this individual, which I was like that like couple of years back. I hope you will enjoy my session. So what do you think threat modeling is? Do you have any ideas? If you are here, please just type in the answer into the chat or interact with us. I will much appreciate that. But threat modeling, basically, it's a proactive and systematic approach to identify, assess, and address potential security threats to a system. To put it lightly, threat modeling revolves around three stuff. The first is lasagna. Oh, wait, actually, it's assets. So we have to first identify the assets. Then the threat modeling revolves around Garfield, or in this case, Garfield would be a representative of threats or a threat agent, someone or something that is trying to do something bad to our asset. And to combat that, John, the owner of Garfield, he put in some countermeasures or mitigations that would prevent different actors gaining the hold over the asset. So that's like threat modeling in a nutshell. The threat models themselves can look, for example, like this. So you have pretty large diagrams consisting of entities. After this session, you will understand the role and the meaning of each of this entity. And these entities are interacting with each other. And the main goal for threat modeling is identifying the threats and also thinking about how to address these threats, which can be seen within the diagram. And how we should be doing the threat modeling? Well, first of all, we should start with identifying the assets because we have to understand and we have to know the stuff that we want to protect. After that, we will break down the application itself, break it down to the components, and each of these components we have to threat model. So for each of these components, we have to identify the respective threats that are over there. Then we have to classify them and we have to also structure them, meaning that like we would put together some threads that are relevant to each other or that relates to the same component. And also, and that's quite important, is to rate the severity of the threat, meaning that like we would first deal with the threats that are that have much higher severity, and then we will move to the threats that have lower severity. To determine the severity, we will probably use something like its impact or its likelihood. The higher the impact or the higher the likelihood, the higher would be the severity of the threat. It would also relate to the severity or the criticality of the asset itself. And after that, we will be able to determine the correct countermeasure, because, and this does not necessarily relate to threat modeling, more to the risk analysis. We can decide that we will either like accept the risk, or that we will mitigate it completely, or that we will ignore it. So these are the actions that we can do. This brings us to the question whether threat modeling is agile or waterfall. What do you think? If I bring back the picture, as you can see, it kind of resembles a waterfall. A waterfall. But the truth is that threat modeling can exist both in agile and waterfall world. It can adapt to both agile and waterfall, because skills that we will use, the tasks that will get assigned, and the frameworks that we will use are pretty similar. But what differs is the deliverables and the integration. For the waterfall world, aka you will be creating the threat model documents, it's mainly treated as a one-time activity, which is more structured, it's comprehensive, it's detail oriented. It is usually done as an initial phase, and it provides you with detailed and clear documentation. The disadvantage of using waterfall in this case is that the threat model itself will be less adaptable to new threats, which might be discovered later during the development. And in case a major change occurs, we might even need to rework the whole. Threat model. And also, like it implements some security controls, it implements some mitigations, and it also adds the test cases for us. Then we have an agile world in which threat modeling is in the form of bugs and conversations. So while doing threat modeling, you discover new bugs and you have conversations about them, and you create a new tickets for your team's backlog. You focus on much smaller scope. Usually it's only the current sprint, and it's an ongoing and iterative approach. It's quite flexible. It gives you the opportunity to quickly respond to new threats, which is quite good. But also at the same time, it might be quite challenging to keep up the pace with the moving world. So in case you are developing something that is quite rigid, you might want to stick to the waterfall. With the agile world, you will basically create security-oriented stories, meaning that after you discover a new threat or new entity within your threat model, you will basically create a new story and put it into the sprint's backlog for the developers or the other parties to deal with later. And who should participate in threat modeling? Well, that's kind of a difficult question, but the real answer is everyone, because security, it's everyone's responsibility. It does not only relate, or it's not only mandatory for the security people to attend, but also the developers as well as the application owners should be part of a threat modeling exercise. And as for developers, I am often receiving a question whether only the junior developers or only the seniors developers have to attend these events, because like there's some misconception that only senior developers know their domain and are able to do threat modeling on it. But the truth is that like during threat modeling, it's one of the best ways how you can pass down the knowledge from a senior developer to a junior developer. And at the same time, junior people are usually much more enthusiastic. Not that the senior people are not, but they are really enthusiastic, and they look for the new threats and new emerging technologies, and they can bring new idea to your team, meaning that like if you combine both junior and senior developers and invite them to the threat modeling session, you might be able to get the best result. And when should you update your threat model? Well, actually, you should be updating it as often as possible. But we can say that if one of these three following cases occur, then we should be updating the threat model. The first is that you should update it when a new feature is released. Because if you bring in a new feature, your application changes, and there might be a new threat that you will have to deal with. Also, if a security incident occurs, even if it turns out that you have dealt successfully with a security incident, it might show you a new perspective, and it might either confirm that that your original assumption within the threat model was correct, or it can tell you, okay, so this was the case that we have not covered in our threat model, so we should cover it. So yeah, that's the second case. And the third one is if an architecture or an infrastructure component gets changed. For example, if you are hosting or if you have been hosting your application on on-prem infrastructure, you didn't have to deal with some of the issues. But then you've decided to move to a public cloud, and after that, a new threats for you emerges. So also that's the third case at which you should be changing your threat model. And which tools you can use for threat modeling. Basically, these are the well-tested tools. You can either use pen and paper. That's the one that I am using the most, but also that's only the one that you can use, for example, for sketching something or like putting some ideas onto a paper. But for collaborative threat modeling, you will most likely have to move into a dedicated tool that can either be a Draw.io or a Miro board or a whiteboard itself. If you, for example, meet in person at one place, whiteboard might be the best option for you to do threat modeling on. Also, there are a bunch of like a dedicated threat modeling tools. For example, this screenshot that I've taken, that's from the Microsoft threat modeling tool. It's available online. It's available for free, and Microsoft hasn't paid me to make this promotion. But if you want, you can download the tool and you can test it yourself. Basically, it's like a diagramming tool, but it has some advanced structures that can be put into the place, and you are basically like dragging the elements from the right panel to the canvas that you can see on the left side. This is, for example, a diagram of an application. You have some entities over there. They are interacting with each other, and this type of a diagram is called the data flow diagram, and I will talk about this on the next slide. So a data flow diagram is a way how to represent a flow of data through a process or a system. Basically, if you want to threat model a system, you have to have some common understanding about the problem and about the system itself. And to capture the system, you will most likely use a DFD or a data flow diagram, as it provides you with the informations about the outputs and the inputs with which each component is working. And it also does not have a control flow because there are like no decision rules and no loops. It's just covering the way how the data can flow through your application, or it covers your application logic. To put it into an example, you can see a data flow diagram over here. This is a data flow diagram of a simple application with a static front end and then backend. It also communicates with a database, and it also uses some third-party services. If you take a look with a circle, we are like covering the processes. These are the activities that can be done. Within the rectangle, you can find the actors. These are the like the entities that are doing the activities, meaning like, for example, the user can request some files from a front end, and based on these files, he or she can also modify the report, which will be then sent to the application or processed by the application backend. And the report will be then stored within the database, or it can be like enhanced or enriched with the data from other services. And for this data flow diagram, the point of a threat modeling is to basically introduce some boundaries and introduce some countermeasures. For the boundaries, we are setting up something that's called a trust boundary. It basically separates zones with a different trust level for us. For example, if you have a user, you might be, or you might allow every user to get the data from the front end, but only some of these users, for example, the editors, might be able to interact with the application backend to modify the original report, meaning that there should be some trust boundary. There should be some entity that will, for example, check the user role and determine whether he or she can access the or whether he or she can edit the report at the backend. So you would, for example, implement some type of an authentication for this. After that, from the application itself, it should also like have a different type of a trust boundary when interacting with the database, because, for example, only some processes might be able to interact with the database itself, not, for example, the user. Meaning that way you will be able to cut, for example, an application administrator from interacting with the database directly and tampering with the data itself. Also, for the third-party applications, that's that multi-process you can see on the right bottom section. You might also want to set up a different type of a trust boundary, preventing the third-party services to be able to access your backend. We have several levels of data flow diagram. This is the first level. This might be, for example, covering the application that is used for reserving the tickets for a train. So we have two entities over here. We have a passenger and we also have an administrator, and both can interact with railway reservation. They can do all these activities. Well, if you think about it, this is quite a simple model, but it doesn't capture, or it wouldn't give us enough entities, or it's too abstract to do a threat modeling on, meaning that we can go into a much more details with a second level, where basically we've taken the reservation processes and split it into the two parts. We split it into the reservation process and with the inquiry that is dealing with the type of the storages that the application is using. This might be much easier for us to do threat modeling on, because it gives us enough detail so we can determine, okay, so like we are working with reservation storage, so we should somehow handle that only the authenticated entities will be able to access the reservation storage. We are dealing with the down and the up storage, so this would also bring us to the need to implement some authentication into the process. And if you go way over the board with data flow diagrams, which I have been doing before, you can get to the third level, where you are like take all the things that are abstract on the second level and write it write really broadly and put it into this form. This would be kind of hard to do a threat modeling on, because it has too many entities and too many interactions between them. So like for me, myself, I'm mainly using the second level when I'm trying to threat model something. For the threat modeling, there's also something that's called the threat modeling manifesto. If you know, or if you've heard about the Agile manifesto, it's something similar. Basically, in 2020, a group of threat modeling practitioners and experts came together, and they've created something called Threat Modeling Manifesto. The manifesto contains some values and the principles connected to the practice and adoption of threat modeling, as well as it identifies, and that's the important part, it identifies patterns and anti-patterns for threat modeling. And the main goal of the threat modeling manifesto is to put down 4 questions that should be asked while threat modeling. And these 4 questions fall under something that's called Shostack's 4-question framework. Adam Shostack, the person on the right side, I have to give a quite large shout out to him. He's an amazing person, and he's also like the author of threat modeling, Designing for Security book. He's one of the living legends for the threat modeling community. And he basically came up with four questions that we should ask when threat modeling. These are: what are we working on? What can go wrong? What are we going to do about it? And did we do a good enough job? And if you are asking yourself and answering these four questions, you are basically threat modeling. So yeah, that should be the first step when you are doing the threat modeling, is to answer these four questions. It's called a four-question framework. And just like this, I've moved to the topic of threat modeling frameworks because there are a bunch of them, and each of them is different, and each of them addresses a different stuff. The one I will be talking about, and the one I quite like, is called STRIDE. STRIDE stands for, or STRIDE is the mnemonic or the abbreviation for 6 categories, because it splits the threats into 6 categories. The categories are spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privilege. Basically, it's a framework for threat modeling. It was developed by Mr. Gar and Mr. Kornfelder from Microsoft. One might say it's archaic, but I would say that it's battle hardened, because it has been it has been used for all these years, and it still stands. And I believe that it still has some value, opposed to, for example, DREAD, which I believe it's dead. And to look into these 4 categories, we will go over them one by one. So the first category is spoofing. That's dealing with the authenticity. For example, can an attacker gain access using a false identity? This is the major question that should be asked while caring about spoofing. Then there's tampering, which deals with integrity. Can an attacker modify the data as it flows through your application? Then we have repudiation, which deals with not repudiability. If an attacker denies doing something, can we prove that he did it? Also, there's information disclosure, which deals with confidentiality. Can an attacker gain an access to private or potentially injurious data? And then there's denial of service, which deals with availability. Can an attacker crash or reduce the availability of your system? And also there's an elevation of privilege, which deals with authorization. Can an attacker assume the identity of privileged user? And to understand this, let's just for a moment imagine that we are planning a trip to a foreign country. You know, it's summer right now, people are going on vacations, and we can use STRIDE to help us identify potential threats and measures to mitigate risks. So with STRIDE, I've put it into this simple table where we have the categories such as spoofing, tampering, and so on. So like for spoofing, a scammer might try to pose as a travel agent, and he might want to steal our passport and basically assume our identity. So to mitigate this, you would, or to develop a countermeasure, you would verify the credibility of travel agent before you will share the personal information with him. Then there's also tampering. For example, if someone is tampering with travel itinerary, he might want to modify the flight details, he might alter the hotel reservations, and basically if that would go wrong, it would be kind of hard for us, because we might either miss our plane or arrive at the hotel and discover that our reservation was cancelled. So we have to double check the itinerary, we have to cross-reference everything, and we have to basically use the secure and reputable booking platforms. For the reputability, maybe there's the hotel to which we are traveling might falsely claim that we've never paid to stay, and it might be kind of difficult for us to prove our payments. So we should also like keep the copies of all important documents and receipts. We should take the pictures of it or a screenshot as an evidence. Then there's also like this information disclosure. For example, pickpocket might try to steal your wallet containing identification documents and sensitive information. So we should safeguard it. We should use secure bags. We can even try an RFID blocking wallets. For example, if someone would try to scan our credit card to pose as us. Also, there's denial of service, which basically, like in this case, it might be a transportation strike that would prevent us from reaching our final destination, or it might be, for example, natural disaster, which might disrupt our traveling plans. So we should stay informed about the potential disruptions, maybe have a backup plan. If we will be traveling by a boat, we can even, for example, consider that we might be flying over there. And elevation of privilege. For example, somebody is trying to sneak into the restricted area of an airport to compromise the security of it. So just for that, we should follow the rules and the regulations in the restricted area. We should be aware of our surroundings and also like of people trying to sneak in. But like these are the threats that if you, for example, don't know the domain, it might be kind of hard for you to understand the threat or to even like know that these type of threats exist. And to better understand the threats or to better even understand the existence of it, we might want to try gamifying the threat modeling exercise. And why we should be doing it? Well, because people such as myself or the developers, we usually like games. And if you are putting something that might seem kind of boring, such as a threat modeling, into a game, it might attract us, and it surely attracted me. So that's why I'm here, and I'm happy that I can give this talk. It all starts with a game that's called Elevation of Privilege. It's basically a grandfather of all card threat modeling games. For example, if a C language is a grandfather for all the programming languages, then the elevation of privilege is a grandfather for all the other threat modeling games. It was developed by Adam Shostack in 2010, and it has many derivatives. For example, there's Cornucopia, Cumulus, and something called elevation of MLSec, or machine learning security. The last one was released in 2024, so it's quite recent. It's dealing with the potential threats or threat modeling within AI and machine learning. So as you can see, people, and by people I mean the community, are taking on the concepts that are within the elevation of privilege, because like the topic is pretty much the same, but what changes are the categories that you are dealing with, and they are adjusting it into their domain. For example, Cornucopia is dealing with the web and mobile applications, so like the threats won't be related to the threats or the topics will be related to web and mobile applications. Cumulus is dealing with cloud and DevOps, and also the elevation of MLSec is dealing with AI and machine learning. As you can see on the picture on the on the right side, there are several categories for the cards. For example, you can see that there's like a spoofing category, the tampering category, the information disclosure. It's all related to all the original categories within Stride. Also, the cards themselves, they have numbers. The numbers goes from 2 to basically an A, which stands for ace, which is the highest value. The higher the number, the higher the much more or the higher the threat, meaning that like for example, the most difficult thing, the difficult stuff or the most important threats are usually marked with a letter A, and the smaller threats are marked with number 2. You can earn the for all these games, because in the essence, all of these games are similar. So for the points, you can earn them either by finding threats, or you can get them by having the largest score within the given category. I will then explain. I will explain the rules later. Usually, during these workshops, the participants work with a data flow diagram, meaning that like you have a diagram of an application with you, and you are basically using these cards to ask yourself questions and trying to find whether that particular threat might apply to your system. In case it will, you will then write down your findings. You can create a security stories from that, and you will get the points for finding the threats. The second version, or like the first child of elevation of privilege, is something that's called OWASP Cornucopia. It's focused on web applications and mobile applications. It has various categories such as data validation and encoding, authentication. Then there's session management, that's for the web applications, and the network and storage for the mobile applications. Then you are dealing with authorization, cryptography, and the last section, which is cornucopia. These are like the general threats. You can order this set online. It's sold by a company called Agile Stationery. And if you are an OWASP member, you can get a discount. Also, there's an online version that can be played at the link that I've attached below. I've tested it with my friends. To some extent, it was working. I have been dealing with some issues, but as I've seen or as I've checked before the session, it should be hopefully working. But I've changed the presentation so it contains like an example game at the end. So at the end we will see how the game should be played. Also, you can adjust the rules based on your own preferences. And then there's a game that I will be talking much more about. That's OWASP Cumulus. I've also prepared an example game for it. It's a derivation that's focused on cloud and DevOps. You can play an online version on the NetGroup website. It separates or it has some categories. These are access and secrets. Basically, this relates to identity and access management and the secrets management itself. Then there's also delivery. So if you are building and shipping software within the CI/CD or within the or if you are related to the supply chain, you might want to check that category. There's also recovery, which is dealing with backups and restores. Monitoring, that's basically logs, alerts, traceability, observability, everything around it. And resources, which are the threats on resources and their configuration. You can find the online demo or online version at the net group. What I really like about this group is that they've put together a really well thought demo that can be to some extent played with your friends or with your coworkers. Just be sure to not put any sensitive information into it, or you can try to host it yourself. How it works is that you are basically like taking a threat model that you are uploading that online. You receive a set of cards, and you can play these set of cards and try to find threats. We will see that within the example game. And if you will find a threat that's really within your system, you will get a point, and also like a player which will get has the card with the highest number within the selected suite. That the player receives a point as well. On this picture, you can see all the cards that are within the OWASP Cumulus. I know that it's not that readable, but I just wanted to point out that there are really a lot of cards and a lot of categories. As you can see, the categories are different, not only within the colors, but also with the respect to the contents. Also, not every category has all the numbers. For example, the yellow category, which I believe is monitoring, it starts from the number 5. So yeah, these are the cards. All of them are available online. You can get them from their GitHub. You can print them. Please just don't sell them, because this has been the activity of the volunteers within the community. So in case you want to print them, for example, for your workshop, be sure to give them give them a shout out. I've also printed my cards. I've used them for a recent conference where the participants were able to play a couple of games. They were able to take some of the packs home and discuss the threats. Even if you are not playing it as a game itself, it's really nice to just like get the cards and to read through the threats and understand like what the threats are, what's available out there, and what you might be, for example, thinking about. So even if you don't consider playing it, just get yourself a pack of cards and you can peruse through them. So, and as for the rules, now I will explain them, and then we will check the example game between 3 players. So basically, you start with giving a players a set of cards. By the number of cards that you will give them, you can determine how what will be like the length of one of the games. For example, if when I was doing it for one of the workshops, we were standardly playing with 8 to 10 cards, and then we were like switching between each other, and we have created a thread model or a thread diagram after each of the session, which was really nice because at the end we were able to put everything together. So you first start by dealing cards. Then you have to decide a starting suite or a starting category. So the player will decide which category they want to start with. Then each player will put down a card of a selected category. If he or she doesn't have the required category, he may put down any card that he or she wants. The players then take turns revealing their cards and reading the text on the card to the others. The players discuss whether this threat might apply to them or not. If yes, the threat will be written down, and the player that discovered the threat will receive a point. And then the player with the highest card from the selected suite gets a point and may select the next suite. So, for example, you can start with backups, and then you can switch to monitoring. It's up to you. The main goal here is to find the most threats, and also like the threats that really applies to you. And also the game continues until all the cards are played. So if you, for example, decide to give players a lower amount of cards at the beginning, like 5 to 6, the game will be much shorter. So let's check an example game between 3 players. We have Alice, we have Bob, and we have Charlie. Currently, they are playing monitoring, or they've selected that they will be playing monitoring suite. The monitoring suite is the yellow one. As you can see, Alice has 1 yellow card, Bob has 1 yellow card, and Charlie doesn't have any cards. Meaning that that when Charlie gets to the point or gets his turn on, he might play any card he wants, but he cannot get the point for the highest card within the selected suite, as he don't have any cards that relates to the selected suite. So the players put down their respective cards. Alice selected a yellow 7, Bob selected a yellow queen, and Charlie selected a green J. Okay. And as of now, we are not seeing we are not able to see the cards. Also, I've put a scoring into the upper right corner, so you can keep track of a score. So Alice starts with reading a card. We won't get an alert if an end user generates a huge cloud bills for us. On the right side, you can see what's written on the card. It's the same thing that Alice read, but yeah, this is the way how the card looks like. And then Bob and Charlie have to think about or have to determine whether this threat applies to their system or not. Charlie mentioned that, now that you mentioned that, it's true, we won't receive an alert. So Charlie has identified a threat. A threat will be then written down, and it will be used to generate a security story for the team to deal with. So Charlie receives a point. And Bob then says that that doesn't apply to him. Then Bob follows with another round, or it gets to him. We do not know how to react when our monitoring sends alert. And then it's on Charlie and Alice to determine whether it applies to them or not. So they think about it, and nope, it's not their case. And lastly, Charlie has to say something. So he can read his card, which is all our backups can be destroyed at once due to lack of redundancy. So Alice and Bob will then think about their system and whether it applies to their system or not. And as you can see, it does not apply to them. That's not their case. So Charlie won't receive any point. This would also be the only way for Charlie to receive his points, since he doesn't have any yellow card. And because Bob played the highest value card from a selected suite from the monitoring, he also receives 1 point. And then also because he received that 1 point and he has the highest card, he is now able to select the next suite. So he selected the category of access and secrets. That's the red one for the next round. So for the next round, the color changes or the selected suite changes, and the player will be required to play the red cards and identify the related or the access and secret threats. So, and this way the threat modeling goes on. And I hope that you've enjoyed my short session on card games in threat modeling. I can much advise you to get the prints for yourself and play it with your friends or with your teams. It's a lot of fun, and it can also enlighten you as well. So this was my talk. Thank you for your attention. If you want to reach out to me, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can check my websites. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. If you will think about any questions or would like to ask in the future, just feel free to reach out to me and ask me directly.
Hi, thank you. That was very informative. So I believe we've all enjoyed the session and learned something about threat modeling. So now if we have any question for Hung, we can drop it in the comment section so we can use the next couple of minutes to take questions before we wrap up the program. So while we wait for questions, I do have a couple of questions for you, Hung. So you mentioned a couple of tools while during your presentation. So if you don't mind, could you tell us which of these tools is the best one you've used?
Well, that's like I think that's kind of subjective, but like the tool that I'm using most of the time, for example, if we are doing it on a workshop itself, it's a mirror board, because it does all the things that we need, that we basically need. So, for example, we have a small team of 6 developers over there, and if we meet and the developers are doing the threat modeling and we are discussing the topic, it gives us the ability for each of the developer to move the cards, to be able to draw the diagram and this on. So I'm like kind of old school. I don't use any dedicated tools. I use a mirror board
No,
or
okay.
a pen and paper.
Oh, okay, great. So next will be how will you say the card game has improved your approach to threat modeling?
Yeah, well, actually, before I was introduced to card games, and now I have to give a shout out to my friend Marek Schutl, who introduced me to the card games. I wasn't familiar with majority of those threads, and so like I've spent a lot of the time just like going over the cards one by one, reading about the threads, then using some other tools, for example, CV or some other database to read to get the more context about the thread itself. So like it really broadened my horizons, if we can say it like that. And yeah, it's also like this is probably it was like a learning opportunity for me. And after some time, I've even like got to the point that when I'm doing threat modeling, I don't need those cards. I'm doing threat modeling without those cards, because like, let's face it, it's to set up a workshop, it takes a lot of time. You have to order pizza and make everything nice. So like if we are doing it, for example, in our working environment, it helps me to determine the threats much faster than it used to before. So if you are, for example, beginner to threat modeling, I think that like even going through the cards can help you a lot.
Oh, well, thank you. So, thank you. That was grateful. That was good. Thank you. So, DevSecCon is brought to you by Snake. And our aim is to create a vendor neutral space to share knowledge and best practices that is related to software security. We are all encouraged to join our Discord community because that is literally where the conversation takes place. I've dropped link to the Discord in the comment section, so you can always join. And after this session, if you have any question that comes up about threat modeling or how you and your team can make use of the card games to improve your threat modeling within your organization or just your own personal knowledge, you can always drop your questions in the Discord the community, and we'll always take time to make sure we answer those questions. So a huge thank you to Ong for this informative session. We hope we have you sometimes on again. So we hope to have you on here again sometimes in the future. Also, I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining in. I hope you all have enjoyed this session. And lastly, the link to this recording will be shared online and also in our Discord community. So we can always rewatch it if there is something we want to relearn or there is a concept we didn't grab. So we can always rewatch it and also share with our friends that we believe they will benefit from the discussion. So that will be all for today. And thanks to everyone for joining in. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. So bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, bye.